Hey guys, I'm glad to see you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed last week with sedimentary rocks and enjoyed starting to identify and classify those. In class, if we had those in class, I would be actually showing you them in the class. It's a little tougher to do rock classifications in the on an online setting. So hopefully you understood that and understood the reasoning behind it. Well, we're going to be doing something similar this week with igneous rocks. We're going to be looking at some rocks as well, trying to classifying them and trying to determine if the person was correct or not, and seeing what would be the better options for them. But sedimentary rocks can be kind of be tough sometimes because there's so many different varieties of them. Igneous rocks are a little bit more straightforward because there's less variety of them, but they're sometimes harder to determine the history of them. So it depends on the structure. This week we're going to be doing, like I said, igneous rocks. Basically chapter 4, Up from the Inferno is what it's called. And this is our unit. Obviously this video you found here. I just haven't put it here because I'm not there yet. But we're going to talk about the basics of igneous rocks, volcanoes, and the resources that we obtained from those processes. You remember, I want to try to make this so that it's relative to you as much as possible. So we're going to talk about volcanoes and how you mitigate those or lessen the effects of volcano impacts, why they're important, and then also some of the resources we get from igneous rocks itself. Now, I have to make this this discussion. Our first exam is next week, next Tuesday, okay? And so I want you to start planning now. Now, the best way to plan for exams is by looking at the objectives. The objectives in each section have these things that you should be able to do. So if you can explain why melting happens inside of the Earth, you're probably going to do pretty good. So if for melting, we're going to learn about this in our lecture slides, in our lecture videos. There's 3 basic ways you can get melting, right? You can get melting because of increased temperatures, decreased pressures, or increased volatiles in your magmas. So if you can explain that, explain why those happen, then you're good, right? So what these objectives do, they're really basically serve as study guides for your exams. They help you to know what the main points of each section are and what you should be focusing on. Now, some of the objectives are a little bit more in more detail than others, but I try to do my best I can with them. Okay. Now, also a good way to study is to go back through your quizzes and go through some of the quiz questions, because I'll promise you that some of those quiz questions that you had in your quizzes and even maybe on your online activities, they might be reworded a little bit or changed a little bit, but you'll see them maybe on the test as well. Now, the test is going to make up of true-false questions, multiple choice questions, and even matching questions on the exam. And there will be a time limit on them on the exam, and we'll talk more about that. I'll do an overview for them, maybe on a little that you'll see in here as well. But I'll go into a little bit more detail about that, about the exams a little bit later. Okay, so for this week though, make sure you go through those objectives, do your readings. Okay, the readings here is chapter 4, Up from the Inferno, and there is another PDF. I don't know why there's these multiple links here, but they all go to the same place. So you go on there and then focus on this one here. This is actually the same kind of one that we saw before. We find igneous resources. Okay, this is igneous and metamorphic at the same time. Focus on the igneous because that's where we're going to be focusing. We'll have this reading and go back and do the metamorphic later, but we're going to be focusing on the igneous for now. You should have your e-text by now. The trial period should be pretty much over, if not already. So here's the link to that. You still, I think, can get the temporary access for part of. No, I think it's actually over as well. So they might not be able to access that anymore. So, anyways, there's a glossary here for some of the basic terms that you have in that as well. The lecture slides, I haven't posted them here yet. I finished them, but I have to tweak them a little bit to post them. But this is where they're going to be with your lecture slides here as well. In those lectures, I do have some links to some videos within the lectures that I would ask you to watch. I don't watch them in the videos because the program doesn't pick up the audio the same way that it does with me over the microphone. So you're going to have to click on the links themselves and watch them yourself at a different time. So, and you can do that from the PDF if you click the PDF. As always, I put some additional videos down below. These ones are really good. and they really will help you out. So if you need some extra help, please go to these. This will assist you quite a bit. Especially this first one will help you a lot with the discussion this week. And the discussion is a lot like the last one we did. Let me go to I'll come back to that one in a second. Remember the assignments, we have two. We have a reading assignment on Tuesday and the online assignment on Thursday. Let's go back to the discussion board. And the discussion board is, like always, I would hope that you put your initial post by Wednesday, and then that way you can interact back and forth with the class to the rest of the week to be able to understand what you're doing. Now, once again, I'm breaking it up into 3 different groups. So because I only have 10 rocks, we have 30 people in the class and only 10 rocks, and I didn't want you guys to redo the same rocks. And so I want each person to do an individual rock. So it is important that if you go through here and go to the bottom of the discussion page, and if you see somebody who's already done that rock, you have to go back and do a different one. Okay, so make sure you kind of peruse that one. And last time I blocked them out, but this time I don't want to, because I want to make sure people can go back and actually look at them. So you do need to go back and check to see if someone's actually done that. If somebody's done it, last time I was a little bit lenient because a couple of you guys did the same mineral, not realizing that somebody else already did it. I think one person did that, and I was lenient on you guys last week, but I'm not going to be continually lenient on I mean, not last week, the mineral week. I'm not going to be continually lenient on you guys as you move forward. You do need to do different ones. Also, some of these are easier than others, so the sooner you get to them, the easier it's going to be. And so, last of all, let's see here, what I was going to say. Last of all, the one that I wanted to discuss here is, oh yes, so this is going to be just like the sedimentary rock one you did last week, except it's for sedimentary, instead of a sedimentary rock, you have an igneous rock that you're now identifying. And this one specifically has some hints down below, but then also if you click on the 3D model, you can go in there and peruse the 3D model as it sets up here. It's going to take a second for it to completely load, but as it does, you can click on here and click in a little sooner. And these ones that are done by these other guys, they're a little more professional than some of the ones that I do. They have a scale on it and everything like that, but they're good enough for what we're doing. The only thing is about the ones that I do, they usually have extra hints that are not included in it. So let me see if I found one that I did. Yeah, this is one that I've done personally. Mine's not a completely 3D model. It has a section that was on the ground, and so there's a hole in it, right? Okay, but you can see it, and there's these hints and little annotations that might talk to you about the grain texture, give you hints of things, and tell you about, is this volcanic or extrusive or intrusive or things like that. Okay, so what you're going to do is just like last week, is you're going to go and do, first of all, try to make some observations of that, as many observations as you can, and then actually, based off of those observations, you're going to say, based off of those observations, you're going to then try to identify the rock. Make sure you explain why you identify it that way, and then also explain the geological history of the rock. It's cooling history, its composition, and things like that. Okay, there is a basic chart to help you identify that as you go. Anyways, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll help you where I can. Talk to you guys later.